Well, it did not take long for fresh adjustments to be made to SARYN SPORES' ability. But are these changes good, or did she just get nerfed in a big way? So following the rework of SARYN, Spores received the most love with the best changes overall. DE decided to remove the spamming aspect of Spores by making it a toggle style ability. The first cast would hit a target with Spores, whereas the second cast would pop all Spores on all enemies. This change took some time to adjust to, but once I adjusted, I found SARYN more enjoyable than she was in the past. This is even before I factored in the new damage capability of Spores from those changes. First change to note is that Spores is now technically spammable again. You still cannot cast Spores on the Molt, but you can cast Spores repeatedly on different enemies. It is still a maximum of 3 Spores active on any enemy at a given time, so you still cannot spam Spores onto a single enemy. The second notable change is with the range at which Spores are spread. Initially, with this rework, Spores had a base spread range of 16 meters when shooting a Spore or popping a Spore with Toxic Lash active, but not killing the enemy. Killing an enemy, having an ally kill an enemy, or the damage from Spores killing an enemy caused a 50% reduction to the range, making the base range 8 meters. Now this has been simplified a bit, where the base spread range is 16 meters for all, except when Spores kill the enemy. Spores have been nerfed, so they will no longer spread when the damage from Spores is the cause of death. This is important because that is a significant reduction to the overall effectiveness of Spores. Before reading the change notes, it felt like the spreading range of Spores had been nerfed while playing SARYN. After reading the notes, I saw why my Spores were struggling to spread to more than a handful of enemies at a time. The last big change is that with the initial rework, Spores had a new damage counter introduced that increased by 1 damage per Spore per second. Now the damage counter will increase by the number of enemies infected instead, with a hard cap at 10 enemies. So that means where before you would see a difference between 10 enemies and 30 enemies infected, there is now no longer a difference. The damage counter will increase at a rate of 2 damage per second per enemy infected, meaning that without mods, you have a max increase rate of 20 damage per second. So ultimately, the damage counter grows much more slowly now. In addition to this, there is a hard limit on the damage counter of 100,000 damage. The only other good change here is that your damage counter now decays over time when no Spores are active, as opposed to completely resetting when the last Spore pops. My original build from the initial changes still stands as my preferred build, however these fresh changes have made her feel a bit more fragile during play. So to counter that, I have made adjustments to the build to capitalize on the use of regenerative molt. So is this just an adjustment, or is this a straight nerf? To me, this is a very hard nerf of SARYN's most notable ability. As usual with a major change, there were a lot of people playing SARYN again following the initial rework. But with this fresh adjustment to Spores, I am now seeing almost no one playing SARYN. That's pretty significant, as I was running into multiple missions where there were 3 or 4 SARYNs, and now I'm running into a mission being the only SARYN every time. Does SARYN still have good damage capability? Yes, she does, but she still feels more fragile now, as it takes longer for Spores to be truly effective. There are also more noticeable bugs with SARYN, as I saw Spores spread to enemies several meters away, but not to the enemy standing next to the enemy I killed. Regardless of anything else, I definitely find SARYN less enjoyable to play now, and it seems I'm not the only one. Only time will tell if she rebounds from this or becomes one of the least played Warframes. That is it for this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to hit that like button, leave me a comment below, and hit subscribe if you haven't done so already. As always, I'm your host, Mr. Spicy. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to keep it spicy this week, and I will see you in the next video.